Hi there guys, welcome back to Dad Plays Stuff and another Daemon X Machina Iron Dad video, or as it was originally known, the Solo Outer Challenge. Now today we're going to be tackling dungeons, which as you can imagine can be quite difficult. So before we get into it, please leave a like, a comment and subscribe. Now as you can obviously see, the footage has been sped up by 2 times. Reason for that is this video would be way too long and way too boring for a lot of people. The whole outer challenge thing has always been a battle of attrition. It takes patience and it takes a little bit of making the right build and a little bit of skill. I mean, it's difficult for a lot of the enemies to hit you as an outer because you're so mobile and so small, and that is the kind of biggest advantage you've got. However, your damage is significantly gimped in comparison to if you came in a full decked out arsenal. So you have to take things slowly, otherwise you're just going to get worn down really quickly because you have limited amount of health. You can't regenerate outer health as far as I'm aware, so you have anything up to 8, I believe, is the maximum amount of health that you can work your build around. Now, the basic strategy of this in general remains the same. You want to stay at a height that's reasonable. The problem with being at a high elevation is if you get hit by an enemy attack that's quite significant in terms of force, you will fall to your death. Doesn't matter if you've got full health or not, you will fall to your death. You can recover from mild hits, which is most of the hits in the dungeon, but if they hit you hard enough, you will fall to your death, so be aware of that at all times. Now, the 2 main problematic rooms as an outer are the red room and potentially the green room. I didn't come across one of the green rooms, so I can't say for certain, but I'm going to assume that it deals a fair amount of damage to you, or does nothing. I really don't know. Test it out. If you find out, give me some feedback. I'd heavily like to hear what happens when you go into a green room as an outer. Anywho, the red room, the biggest problem is that when you enter it, it drains your weapon and basically overheats it. This means that you can't attack. Now, there are 2 ways around this. The first is standing outside the room and picking off the enemies outside of the field of the red wave, or going inside and either using the many kind of random outer melee attack stuff you can draw upon and taking out things that way, which is risky. Or you can basically just go inside the rooms and drag the enemies out, or rather lure them out so that you can fire at them from the outside. The good thing about these rooms is that you can fly in them. So if you go into a red room as a arsenal, you can't fly, but if you go in as an outer, you can. Use that to your advantage. Now, one of the obvious flaws of doing a run like this is that you are unable, as an outer, to pick up any dropped equipment from other arsenals or just random weapons, the gargoyle items, all that kind of thing. So there is a way around that. You can always go back, pick up your arsenal and bring it to the loot, and then pick it up. However, for the sake of this video, I felt that was kinda pushing the limits of time a bit much. As you can imagine, I sped up this video to 2 times because it was already too long. It was about 25 minutes long by the time we got to the end of it, and yeah, it just seemed a bit unreasonable to be going back and picking up all the loot as well. There's not really anything I need specifically from the dungeon. I mean, I take on enemies with outers and Orsa armor. It's not like being lower in damage and health really affects me in the grand scheme of this game. Now, the final hurdle you face in this type of run is obviously the bosses at the end. Now, which boss spawns is entirely dependent on random chance. So, for example, you could end up with the Solomon, the Deva, the Rigid, the Grief, the Brigadier General, or the Johnny. Now, each one of these has its own strengths and weaknesses, but a general rule of thumb is if you get Solomon or you get Grief, they're going to be easier for this type of run. The main reason for that being they run out of stamina a lot and they will drop to the ground. So doing this run with them is significantly easier. Johnny is the weaker of all the arsenals, so he takes more damage and dies quicker. However, I got unlucky enough to get Deva. And the problem with Deva's arsenal is that he is both a melee one and a long range one, well, medium range one, and he doesn't waste stamina. He's actually quite conservative with it. As a result, he basically just flies around, tries to get above you, tries to get behind you, and then tries to go in for melee attacks. The good news with that is melee attacks are really, really bad against an outer. It's very difficult to hit such a small target. On top of that, the game doesn't allow arsenals to lock on to outers. Now, I don't know if that's true for the AI or not, but it certainly seems that way. I mean, he'd fly at me with his sword and he would just go straight past me. That's the kind of advantage you've got as an outer. Now, as you can probably see, I've sped up the footage again. The fighting of the arsenal actually took the longest, and this is the reason why I didn't go for dungeon mode 2. I would still be able to do the same amount of damage, still be able to take out each arsenal. The biggest problem lies in, first off, separating them, but lastly, actually just taking the time to kill them. And as I said, this video took 25 minutes as it was, and if I did what is essentially 12 minutes each per arsenal, it would have just went into a territory that I was not willing to deal with. It would have been really boring for me, would have been really boring for you guys to watch, so it made no sense to kind of do the second one. Don't get me wrong, perfectly doable. The dungeons don't really differ in terms of difficulty, other than the fact that there's 3 arsenals opposed to 1. But as I've said in my dungeon guide video, you can separate them, therefore they are no harder than if you were fighting the normal base dungeon. So it's kind of moot whether you can, if you can basically do the first dungeon solo, you can do the second dungeon solo. It just takes longer and you need more patience for it. Honestly, the biggest frustration I had in the making of this was that Deva would not sit still. He was constantly trying to get above me and behind me, as I said earlier, and he just made him really, really difficult to hit. If you've ever used an outer blitz cannon, it's got a very crappy lock-on speed. So if the enemy's moving around fast enough, you don't get really enough chance to hit them. So a lot of the time you'll see during this, I'm trying to lure him into smaller spaces, namely the corridors, because once he's in there, he can't boost around as much, and he's a lot easier to track. Therefore, I don't need to lock onto him constantly. But he was having none of it. He kept trying to go into the other room and underneath stuff and around stuff and just blocking my shots altogether. It felt like I was fighting against an annoying player in PvP that has a really cheesy tactic that he wants to use. Now, I'm going to take this opportunity to actually issue a thanks to everybody that watches my videos. You guys have been supporting me for a good couple of months, and we've started getting a bunch of new people in, obviously with the release of the Steam version of Daemon X Machina. And I really appreciate everybody that watches, that leaves a like, that leaves a comment. It's all incredibly appreciated. And we're coming up for nearly 200 subscribers now. We're only 8 off at the time of me recording this. So I'm incredibly humbled by the fact that you guys are enjoying my content, and some of my videos are getting some insane views at the moment because there's such an influx to people watching, and I really appreciate it, especially if you've been here since the beginning and been watching me from the start. I 100% appreciate you sticking with me, and if you guys have any ideas or anything you'd like to see, don't forget to tell me down in the comments. I really would love feedback in regards to that, and this video in itself is actually feedback from someone who said they wanted to see me try a dungeon as a solo outer or Iron Dad. So yeah, if you guys want to see me do something crazy like take on the entirety of Immortal Innocence as just an outer, then definitely leave it down below. There's so many different things I could do, but I don't know if people are interested in it or not, and if you guys are interested in these kind of things, definitely leave me a comment about it, especially if you've got something specific in mind that maybe I haven't thought of. There's plenty of things that I haven't thought of, I'm certain, and it's just getting round to different things. If there's any guides that you'd want me to do, again, leave that down in the comments. But anyway, this video's gone on long enough, and again, thank you for watching, I really appreciate it. And if you would be so inclined, leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time for the next Iron Dad against whatever. See you later.